Hi, Paris. Okay, so we're going to go over interviewing. I sent you an email with questions as to what I typically ask the person that I'm interviewing or that's interviewing me for a job. And I used them yesterday, and it always works out in my favor. Sometimes you don't always have time, and sometimes they answer the questions beforehand. So I tend to skip over them. That's why there's a bunch of different questions. But my favorite one is that bottom one as to do you have any hesitations about my qualifications? That way I can see where they're judging me, where I can tell if I don't have enough experience or if I have too much or what they think about my resume, really. And yesterday when I interviewed and I asked two people that interviewed me and they both had different answers. One of them didn't have any issues about my qualifications. Usually they don't. No one really wants to say anything negative. But one of them did say how I didn't have experience answering to the top level CEOs of companies. And it was then where I was able to rebut them and let them know that actually right now I'm working directly under the president and CEO of a company. And while at Bay State, I was able to work with the president and CEO of Bay State and VPs, along with all the directors. So that way, when they had questions or doubts about my resume, I can put them to bed, and that way they can say that they seriously have not had an issue with me. Now, for interviewing, when it comes to answering questions, here's where most people tend to get tongue tied. I guess is the right word, especially on a phone. So I tend to, before the interview, I always write down specific things. The first one that I tend to focus on is weakness. If a person interviewing you doesn't ask what your weaknesses are, then they are not a good interviewer. Do not have experience in interviewing. They're probably new to management, so that's kind of a red flag. I did have a person forget to ask me that, and that's one thing that I did notice is that I still put my weaknesses out there so that way they know that I'm being preemptive. Now, when you need to explain a weakness, you can't hide it in it actually being a strength. For example, in the past, I've said my weakness is I work too hard. That just goes to show that you really don't know what your weaknesses are and that you're not willing to accept it. So I've gone a step further from that by saying I have an issue. My weakness is I tend to put the company before myself. And what I mean by that is I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing and I want to make sure that everything is done efficiently and on task that a lot of times I sacrifice my lunch. It's not healthy. So now the steps that I've taken towards addressing that is using a calendar to schedule times for certain tasks and also having the reminders to go to lunch. So that for that example, it shows that I identified my weakness. I identified what steps I took to address it, and I also brought up how it benefits the company. One of my favorite weaknesses right now, because I'm going for more leadership roles, is my weakness is that I am not a strategic thinker, or I am a strategic thinker. Let's scratch that. I said I am not as in a position where I can be a strategic thinker. I'm not in that space. How did I put it the other day? I've from Bay State, I've learned from many people that are from many mentors to be a successful leader, you need to be strategic. And for my own personal career goals, I would like to be a leader in my future. So I am not up to par with being at that senior level yet, but I am learning from my peers and mentors as to how to gain those skills and from different exposure, I'm learning different ways that I can initiate those strategic methods by listening in on webinars, by going to workshops, and also picking the brains of other people. So that is one of my favorite weaknesses because it goes to show that I'm not there just to make the money and I'm not there to just go in and get the job done. I'm there to grow. That's my ultimate goal, is that I want to move up the ladder. And every person that, unless you're in a like the lowest level entry job, every person interviewing you is going to want that answer. What they're looking for when they interview you is your behavior. They're trying to figure out if you have the mental capacity to take constructive criticism, to work on their goals and your goals, and also longevity. They don't want a person to just come there and then leave after a few months. They're looking for someone to stay there. So the only time that I've ever found a person that was interviewing me that didn't really care for that was a pizza shop or retail store, because they know no one's gonna stay there forever unless they have no life. But so the positions you're going for, they're most likely going to look for the cognitive behavior in the interviews, and if you show any leadership skills. So that's why strategic thinking is my weakness, and it's my goal to learn how to become a strategic thinker. Now, your strengths, what they're looking for is, yeah, if you're a team player, if you're gonna get the job done there, I mean, they're gonna hear everything out of the book. I let them know that my strength is very unique, and when I list out my strengths, I list out my accomplishments. For example, at Canyon Ranch, I can say I created, when I first started training there, they for a program, they gave us a sheet of paper and it was 4 bullet notes. With that program, I turned those 4 bullet notes into an 84-page manual. And and to help with the process of training and to help retain people, because the turnover rate was 6 months. So people were leaving every 6 months usually. And by helping out with the process, I was able to help the business out. So strength of mine is the organization, the eye to notice that something needs to change. I can tell them that I try to find shortcuts and programs and sort of procedures to make sure that things are done more efficiently to better the organization. For example, I created a whole daily task sheet for a company, let's say, so that way things don't fall behind between the cracks. That way they know exactly what needs to get done, and they can just mark it off, so that way they can focus on other things that need to get addressed in the meantime, other project work. You want to list your accomplishments. Let's say, for my own personal experience, my accomplishment was in retail. I started off at Fashion Bug, and within a week, I started off as part-time associate. Within a week, I was promoted to a supervisory role. Everyone noticed my achievements and decided to move forward. Now you can turn retail even into something beyond that. Fashion Bug, and same thing with Carter's, what you do is you have to worry about loss prevention. So I've told them how I got put in charge of team games to keep the employees engaged, because everyone knows that retail, people tend to get burned out. They get bored. It's just the okay, they got to make a sale, but then it's not really enjoyable. So what I did was I created programs to within the employees, within all of our whole company. I created games to keep us motivated, to keep everything new and fresh, and to overall better the customer experience. Because that's what a company wants to hear is, okay, you're keeping engagement up, you're motivating the employees, you're also um, bringing sales up because the employees are happy and more engaged. So those are stuff that bosses and interviewers would like to hear. If you have to explain time away why you didn't work, a lot of times I'll say, well, I was hoping to take this winter off to sort of do some soul searching and see what career path I was interested in, career path I'd like to go down. However, I am not a person that can stay at home. I realized, hi Kitty, I realized that I'm a person that loves to work, and I like to keep very busy. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I have that gap, but it wasn't as long as I'd like, or it wasn't as long as I planned. But that way you turn into a positive, because sometimes they tend to question why you have a gap during employment. Tiger, move. Move! Let's see what else. When you, I don't know if you've seen my resume, but when you can turn even simple things like that into big executive positions, even though it's just sales. When I worked at the boutique, I tell them how it wasn't just sales. I was handling purchasing, which we have an executive purchaser, and I created new inventory control. I processed the sales pitch. What I did was focus more on marketing. So I would create, and really, what me focusing on marketing, what it is you design the floor, you just move displays around. That's marketing. You make a sign for a sale. That's marketing. Um, I created a spreadsheet for a routine. That's administrative work. So, what else can I say? Um, Always focus on the good. When they ask you, tell me about a time where you went above and beyond. What they're really kitty. What they're looking for is not what most people tend to do. Let me backtrack. What most people tend to do is they say, "Oh yeah, they're so caught up in this big event," but they forget to follow through. So usually, what I do is when I went above and beyond is we created this program at Canyon Ranch. Similar to what I already touched base at within you. With the employees, we had a high turnover rate of 6 months. So we created a program where the employees feel appreciated. So I decided to start off with this idea where where you can write in an employee's name where you saw them doing a good job, and in return they got a reward. Sometimes it was a service, and it drastically changed our day-to-day duties, but it also helped with keeping the employees engaged and keeping them positive and getting their clients what they need and what they want. It's not just, oh, I brought in um, these new sneakers and everyone was like, wow. Or it's not like, oh, I I dropped what I was doing to help this one customer because they were really rushed. Usually what I do, one good example I can use from my past experience is at Canyon Ranch where we had noticed there was an error during scheduling where a massage therapist was triple booked and we had no other therapists available. And so what I did was I was able to rework the schedule to make, which is very hard in itself. I was able to rework the schedule to at least accommodate one other massage therapist to have them come in for to do a massage for one of the clients. So now that was one problem that I tackled. Another one was reaching out to the client that was not scheduled first and offering them a different service with a different therapist. That way, everyone could get their own massage. And without letting the client know that they were double booked, I was able to upsell them into a different service by a different practitioner. So that way they were happy and we didn't have to worry about someone losing out on a massage. That goes to show that I was strategic in what I was doing. I made sure that I saved face so the company did not have to deal with an aggravated or upset client and that the company benefited by making more money. So that's something that they're looking for. Another incident where you can use is a program. You notice that in schools with the bullying, you notice that nowadays bullying has become a norm. And what you did is you decided to just notice your surroundings. You went into the schools and picked the brains of some students, some that were bullies, some that weren't, and figured out what was normal, what was acceptable, what wasn't, and how it impacted the students and how it also impacted people around them. And then from there, you created a program where the students would accept the program. It